The elevator climbed like it was dragging a corpse behind it. Natalia Hart watched the golden numbers inch upward. 48. 49. 50. Her blurred reflection stared back at her from the polished brass doors, a ghost in a slate-gray uniform that didn't belong to her life, or to the woman she used to be. The dress smelled like industrial starch and other people's sweat. It hung loose on her frame, hiding sharp collarbones, hollow hips, the slow erosion of 4 hungry years. The white apron cinched at her waist was stained from coffee, bleach, and sacrifice. She adjusted the knot with trembling fingers. That shake wasn't just exhaustion. The graveyard shift at Hotel Virginie had burned the edges off her, but it was the hunger that lived in her bones. The kind that didn't roar anymore, only gnawed steadily, like rats in the walls. The elevator chimed, far too cheerful for 2 a.m. She wrapped both hands around the handle of the service trolley. Her knuckles went white. Ice sweated down the sides of a silver bucket. Beside it, a bottle of bourbon sat in its cradle, gleaming amber and expensive enough to pay 3 months of her rent in one pour. If she still had a home to pay for. The doors peeled open onto the 52nd floor. Up here, the air felt different. Cooler. Scented with sandalwood and money. Crystal sconces cast fractured light over damask wallpaper, making the corridor glow like the inside of a jewelry box. Natalia kept her head down and pushed the cart over thick carpet that swallowed the sound of her steps. 498. 499. 500. The numbers climbed in quiet brass along the wall. Her destination waited at the end of the hallway. Suite 502. The Presidential. Downstairs, the staff whispered about the man who'd taken it. Someone important. Someone dangerous. Someone who tipped in hundreds if you were quick and invisible. Invisible was the only thing she was still good at. She stopped in front of the double mahogany doors. Her heart stuttered into a nervous, uneven rhythm. If she dropped the bourbon, she'd pay it off in shifts until she died. If she annoyed the guest, she'd be written up. If she got fired, she couldn't get fired. Natalia drew in a breath that tasted faintly of polish and air conditioning. She knocked 3 times. "Room service," she called, her voice dry and small in the thick corridor. Silence answered. Not neutral silence. Heavy, watching silence. It slid under her skin, made the tiny hairs at the back of her neck stand on end. Her cheap shoes pinched. Her soles felt like they were made of paper after double shifts, her feet burning with each heartbeat. 30 seconds, she reminded herself. Protocol. If no one answers, you leave the cart and go. She glanced at her scratched watch. The lock clicked. The sound was too loud in the hush of the floor. Metal turning. A deadbolt sliding back. The handle moved and the door opened, spilling a slice of warm darkness across the bright hallway. Natalia kept her gaze lowered to the marble threshold. "Good evening, sir. I have—" She looked up. The rest of the sentence died on her tongue. The man filling the doorway was all sharp lines and coiled power. Bare chest, broad and hard with muscle, scattered with dark hair that arrowed down into black dress pants slung low on narrow hips. Pale skin against the shadows behind him. A throat she knew. A mouth she remembered. Eyes like storm glass, dark, intelligent, dangerous. Eyes she had seen every night in dreams she couldn't afford. Vincenzo Cassano. The world dropped out from under her feet. The hotel corridor, the cart, the late notices shoved under her door, the collectors, the hunger, all of it vanished, sucked out of the moment until there was nothing left but his face and the knife twist of recognition. He looked older, harder. There was a coldness at the edges of his mouth that hadn't been there 4 years ago. His black hair was a mess instead of perfectly styled, his posture edged with tension, as if sleep had been avoiding him for days. He didn't see her. Not at first. His gaze slid over her like she was just another faceless uniform. "Leave it," he said, voice low and rough from smoke or whiskey or not enough rest. He reached into his pocket without really looking, pulled a clip of bills free, tossed a note toward the tray. Go. Her body should have obeyed. Turn. Push the cart away. Leave the bourbon. Leave him. Leave. Natalia couldn't move. Air jammed in her chest. Sound vanished. Her hand stayed glued to the trolley handle like someone had poured concrete over her bones. He frowned when the cart didn't roll. Irritation flickered across those carved features. His head lifted. His eyes finally locked onto her face. Time didn't slow. It stopped. His hand froze in the air for a fraction of a second, still half extended from throwing the money. His pupils blew wide, turning the dark of his irises into bottomless ink. Natalia! Her name in his voice was a whisper and a verdict. The spell shattered. Panic tore through her veins, cold and fast. Natalia stumbled back a step. The corridor tilted, the polished sconces smearing into pale streaks of gold. Her pulse thundered against her ribs in a frantic, painful rhythm. She shouldn't be here. She shouldn't have knocked. She shouldn't have looked up. 4 years of running collapsed into a single, suffocating moment. Vincenzo didn't move, but the air around him changed. Thickened. Darkened. The same way it had the night he stood on the balcony of their old home, framed in moonlight and fury, swearing he would burn the earth to keep her safe. No, no. She couldn't remember that now. She grabbed the cart handle again. Her fingers slipped on the condensation from the ice bucket. I'll leave it, she whispered, her voice too thin, too weak. She began to turn. Don't. The word wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It rooted her in place, electrified the air in her lungs, dragged goosebumps up her arms beneath the cheap uniform fabric. She kept her back to him. Please, she managed. A soft sound, bare steps on marble. He was coming closer. Natalia swallowed hard. Sir, Don't call me that. His voice cut low and quiet behind her. A warning. A plea. A wound with edges that had never healed. Her throat tightened. She squeezed the handle until her knuckles ached. You're not supposed to be here, she whispered, staring at the patterned carpet. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know it was your room. And if you had known, he asked. She shook her head quickly. I would have asked someone else to come. Silence fell behind her, heavy enough to bend her spine. She felt rather than heard him step closer. The warmth of his body radiated toward her, brushing her back in a ghost of contact that tore her breath in half. You ran. His voice was softer now, almost disbelieving. You didn't even say goodbye. Natalia's heart clenched, sharp and sudden. 4 years collapsed into a pulse of grief. You signed the divorce papers, she whispered. No, he said. She turned. Slowly. Fear and longing dragging her like twin weights. Vincenzo stood inches behind her, bare chest rising and falling, eyes locked on her with an intensity that threatened to swallow her where she stood. Everything about him radiated coiled restraint, like he was fighting the urge to touch her, to shake her, to pull her into him and demand why she'd disappeared. I never signed them, he said. Not one page. Her stomach dropped. That's not possible. Her voice cracked. I saw the decree. His jaw flexed, rage moving like a shadow beneath his skin. Marco forged it. The name struck her like a slap. Marco Bellini, the man who had handled all their paperwork, their accounts, their legal filings. Her breath thinned. Why? She whispered. Vincenzo's expression darkened. Because you were getting too close to the money he was bleeding from me. Because you asked questions he didn't want you asking. Because keeping you away made his life easier. Her hands shook. She curled them into fists. He stepped closer. She stepped back until her spine brushed the wall. "Natalia," he murmured, voice dropping into something dangerous and unbearably soft. "You've been gone for 4 years. And the only thing I've wanted in all that time was to find you." Her pulse hammered. Her body remembered him even when her mind screamed to leave. To run. To hide before the world swallowed her whole again. "You already found me," she said, barely audible. No, his gaze held hers, unblinking. "Not yet." He braced one hand against the wall beside her head. A cage without touching her. "You look smaller," he murmured, eyes tracing the sharp angles of her cheeks, the shadows under her eyes. "Starving. Exhausted. Where have you been?" "Working," she whispered. "Surviving." The muscle in his jaw ticked. Anger. Fury. But not at her. "They made you scrub floors," he said quietly. "Made you take these hours. Made you wear this." His eyes flicked to the uniform, something murderous flashing there. "I chose this," she replied. "No," Vincenzo said, voice deepening. "You chose to run from danger. You did not choose to live like this." She exhaled shakily, a trembling breath that wasn't fear. "Not entirely." He leaned closer, slow enough that she saw every fraction of the movement, saw the moment his breath brushed her cheek, warm and familiar and devastating. "Tell me why you left," he murmured. Her throat closed. She wanted to tell him that she'd found that terrible photo, that voicemail, that impossible threat on his life, that she ran because she thought staying meant burying him. But her voice refused to move. His hand lifted, slowly, carefully, fingers brushing the edge of her jaw in the gentlest touch she'd felt in years. Natalia's breath stuttered. He wasn't gripping her, not controlling, not claiming, just touching her like he used to, when the world wasn't breaking around them. "You're trembling," he said. "I'm tired," she whispered. "Liar." She closed her eyes. "Vincenzo," she said, "please let me go." He was silent for a moment. A long, heavy moment filled with things neither of them dared to say. Then he stepped back. Just a single step. Enough to let air move between them again. Enough to make her knees weaken with a sudden loss of heat. "I'll let you go," he said quietly. "But I won't let you disappear again." Her chest tightened. She turned toward the cart. She needed to leave before the floor fell away again. But before she could touch the handle, a distant sound cut through the corridor. The sharp metallic thunk of an elevator arriving, followed by a second sound, a heavier one, a gun being cocked. Vincenzo heard it the same instant she did. His eyes snapped toward the elevator. "Natalia," he said, voice low and lethal. "Get behind me." The hallway lights seemed to dim, the air tightening like a held breath. Natalia didn't move at first. Fear held her suspended, one heartbeat, then another, until Vincenzo's hand closed around her wrist and pulled her behind him with a controlled force that stole her breath. "Stay low," he murmured. The elevator doors at the far end slid open with a soft mechanical sigh. Too soft, too gentle for the man who stepped out. Roman Hale, broad-shouldered, silent as a shadow, dressed in black tactical fabric that absorbed light rather than reflected it. His eyes were sharp, scanning the hallway with military precision before landing on Vincenzo. On Natalia. Roman didn't holster the gun. If anything, his grip tightened. "Boss." His voice was low, neutral, but Natalia could hear the strain under the surface. "We have a problem." Vincenzo didn't turn fully. He kept his body angled between her and the threat. "Talk." Roman flicked a glance toward her, then back to Vincenzo. "We intercepted chatter. Someone leaked your location. The presidential suite wasn't random, it was bait." Natalia's stomach dropped. Wait. For who? Vincenzo asked. Roman's jaw flexed. Rocco Vescari. The name hit the air like a blade. Natalia felt it even without knowing the man. Something cold, ugly, and heavy threaded through the corridor. Vescari. A rival. A predator. A man who fed on weakness the way wolves fed on bone. Roman continued, "We spotted 2 of his men downstairs. They're posing as hotel staff. More are coming. They're armed. They think you're alone." Vincenzo's expression sharpened with lethal control. "I'm never alone," he said quietly. His hand tightened on Natalia's wrist. Roman's gaze flicked over her uniform, her trembling posture, the terror she was trying to swallow. "You need to move. Now," Roman said. "We can't hold them in a civilian building. Not without a body count." Natalia shook her head, stepping forward before she could think. No, I can't go with you. I'll lose my job." Her voice cracked. "I can't lose it. I can't." Vincenzo turned to her, and the look in his eyes froze the rest of her words. Fear softened, replaced by something deeper, something dangerous. "You think your job matters more than staying alive?" he asked quietly. Her breath hitched. He stepped closer, expression carved from shadow and protectiveness. "They're not here for the staff," he murmured. "Not for the hotel. They're here because they believe I'm weak enough to strike." His eyes lowered to her uniform. "To them, you are leverage." Her pulse stumbled. "Vincenzo," her voice wavered. "I didn't know. I didn't mean to. I know." The words were gentle. Too gentle. "But you're leaving with me." Roman lifted his weapon slightly. "We have about 60 seconds before they reach this floor." Natalia's heart hammered in her chest. Her breath came fast. Too fast. "I don't belong in your world anymore," she whispered. Vincenzo's eyes locked on hers. "You were never out of it." He guided her toward the suite door, not pushing, just anchoring her with the weight of his palm between her shoulder blades. "We go through the room," he told Roman. "There's a secondary exit behind the library shelves. Service tunnel leads to the parking deck." Roman nodded and moved ahead silently. Natalia hesitated at the threshold. Inside the suite, everything gleamed with marble and glass and wealth she didn't remember how to touch. The air was warm, quiet, safe in a way that didn't belong to her anymore. She stopped. Her fingers curled against the doorframe. Vincenzo turned, his voice softening like he felt her unravel. "Natalia." Her chest tightened painfully. "If I walk into that room, I can't pretend my life is separate from yours anymore." His gaze lowered, studying her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. "It was never separate." Her breath trembled. Roman's voice cut through the moment. "They're coming up. We need to move." Vincenzo extended his hand. Not grabbing, not commanding, offering. Her hand shook as she looked at it. A choice. A door. A fall. Outside, a distant metallic clang echoed from the stairwell, boots hitting metal. Heavy. Fast. Too many. Natalia swallowed, pulse thundering. Then she placed her hand in his. Vincenzo's fingers closed around hers, steady and sure. "Good," he whispered, his voice a low rasp of relief. "Stay behind me." He pulled her inside the suite just as Roman sealed the doors and dimmed the lights. Behind them, the hallway erupted in the sharp, muffled crash of a battering ram hitting wood. Natalia flinched. Vincenzo didn't. His hand slid from hers only long enough to pull her against his side, shielding her as the walls trembled under the impact. "You're safe," he murmured over her hair. The door cracked. Every muscle in his body coiled. Roman raised his gun. The sweet lights flickered. Veskry's men reached the top of the stairs, and Natalia realized the truth in her bones. She had just stepped back into the fire with the only man she had ever loved. The next blow hit the sweet door hard enough to rattle the chandelier. Dust shook from the hinges. The frame splintered. Natalia's breath caught in her lungs. Roman didn't flinch. He moved silently through the dim suite, disabling lamps, killing the last sliver of light. Shadows swallowed the room. "Positions," he said. Vincenzo didn't need the order. He already had Natalia behind him, one arm wrapped around her waist, anchoring her to the line of his body. His warmth was a shield against the cold terror flooding her veins. A low hum filled the walls, security shutters preparing to drop. Not fast enough. The next blow cracked the door clean at the lock. Vincenzo's breath brushed her ear. "Eyes on me." "Not on them." She nodded, though she wasn't sure she could look at anything except the splintering wood. Roman moved to the far corner near the library shelves, gun aimed at the door with surgical precision. "3 hostiles," he whispered. "Possibly 4. How many do you need?" Vincenzo asked calmly. "Half a bullet each." "Good." Natalia's pulse hammered louder than the blows. Louder than her own breath. "Vincenzo," she whispered. "If they see me." "They won't." "You don't know that." He turned slightly, just enough for his eyes to lock on hers in the dark. The intensity of his stare cut through fear like a blade. "I know exactly what I'll allow." Her breath stuttered. The door burst open. Wood exploded inward. Figures in hotel uniforms surged through the frame, guns raised, movements efficient and silent. Roman fired first. A muffled thud. A body dropped. Another bullet tore into the wall beside the second intruder's head. He dove behind the minibar, firing blindly. Vincenzo pulled Natalia down behind the heavy marble island of the kitchenette as glass shattered across the floor. The third man slipped in through the half-broken door, weapon drawn. Roman pivoted, too late. He wasn't the target. Natalia was. The gunman's arm lifted toward her. She froze, heart stopping, breath leaving her, every muscle locking. Vincenzo moved faster than the shot. He lunged from behind the counter, slamming the man against the wall with brutal force. The gun discharged into the ceiling. Fire sprinklers burst in a glittering rain. Vincenzo's voice dropped into something primal. "You dare point a weapon at her?" The man choked, fingers scrambling at Vincenzo's grip. Roman's bullet ended the struggle. The body hit the carpet with a dull thump. Vincenzo didn't release him immediately. His knuckles were white, jaw tight with fury so deep it bordered on something feral. "Boss," Roman called. "We need to move. Now." Vincenzo forced himself to let go. The gunman slid to the floor. He turned back to Natalia. She was still kneeling behind the marble counter, soaked from the broken sprinkler, trembling so hard her teeth clicked. Her eyes were wide, her breath shallow. Survival panic. Vincenzo's expression softened instantly. Not pity. Recognition. He crossed the space between them, water dripping down his bare shoulders. "Natalia." His voice dropped low. "Look at me." Her eyes lifted slowly to his. "I'm here," he said. "Do you understand?" She nodded, but a broken sound escaped her throat. He reached for her face, cupping her cheeks in both hands. His thumbs brushed soaked strands of hair away, the touch gentle, achingly gentle after the violence. "You listen to me," he whispered. "You survived this. You survived them. And I will never let anyone get that close to you again." Her breath trembled. "I shouldn't have come to the door," she whispered. Vincenzo shook his head sharply. "This wasn't you. This was them." Roman approached, stance still alert. "We need to leave." Reinforcements will take the stairs within minutes. Vincenzo nodded and helped Natalia stand. Her legs wobbled. He slid an arm around her waist, holding her upright. As they moved toward the library shelves, her body leaned instinctively into him, seeking warmth, seeking safety, seeking something she had denied herself for 4 long years. Roman pressed a hidden panel. The shelves slid open, revealing a narrow, dimly lit corridor. Vincenzo guided her through first, stepping close behind her, his breath warm on the back of her neck. The shelves sealed shut with a soft thud. Darkness enveloped them. Natalia swallowed, the terror ebbing into something else, an electric awareness of how close he was. How tightly his hand held her hip. How her body fit against his like nothing had ever shifted. "You're shaking," he murmured. She exhaled. "I'm trying not to." "Don't." He leaned in, his voice brushing her ear. "I'll be steady for both of us." Roman led the way down the narrow passage, gun raised. As they reached the service elevator at the end of the corridor, he turned. "Basement route is clear. SUV is waiting. Rear doors locked. Perimeter secure." Natalia stepped inside the industrial elevator, metal walls echoing her uneven breaths. Vincenzo followed. The doors closed. Silence settled between them, thick, intimate, charged. The adrenaline had faded, but Vincenzo's stare had not. She felt it like heat on her skin. Finally he spoke, voice low, dangerous, and unbearably tender. "Now you understand," he said, "why I will never let you disappear again." Natalia's breath trembled. "Vincenzo, what if they come after me again?" His eyes darkened, burning with a vow older than their divorce. "Then they die." The elevator began its descent, and Natalia realized the truth tightening around her heart. Stepping back into his world wasn't a mistake. It was inevitable. The elevator groaned as it descended, metal vibrating like a warning whispered through steel. Natalia stood pressed against the back wall, water dripping from her hair, her uniform clinging to her skin. Her body trembled from cold, adrenaline, exhaustion, but Vincenzo's presence kept her upright more than the elevator rails did. He stood inches in front of her, one hand braced beside her head, the other still gripping her waist as if the threat hadn't ended. As if letting go would erase her again. Roman watched the numbers drop, gun raised, not speaking. His silence was a cocoon, a shield, a barrier between danger and the woman the world had targeted. When the elevator stopped with a heavy thunk, Natalia flinched. Vincenzo leaned closer. "Natalia," he murmured, voice low and grounding. "It's safe." For the first time since the door splintered upstairs, she believed him. The doors slid open to reveal a dim underground garage, echoing with the distant hum of generators. A matte black armored SUV waited with its engine running, headlights cutting a path through shadows. Roman stepped out first, sweeping the area. "Clear." Vincenzo guided her forward, his hand warm against the small of her back. Every step she took felt like stepping deeper into a world she once lived in and fled from. But now that he was beside her again, solid, unyielding, she didn't feel like an intruder. She felt claimed. The SUV door opened before she reached it. Warm interior lights spilled out, softening the harshness of the concrete surroundings. "Inside," Vincenzo said gently. She climbed in, her legs trembling. Vincenzo followed, sliding in beside her. Roman closed the door behind them with a solid thud before taking the front passenger seat. The moment the vehicle sealed shut, silence wrapped around them. Thick. Electric. The engine rumbled beneath them as the SUV pulled out of the garage. Natalia exhaled shakily. "What happens now?" Vincenzo turned to her slowly. Very slowly. Like he was afraid she would vanish if he moved too fast. "Now," he said, voice deepening, "you breathe." "I'm breathing," she whispered. "Not enough." His thumb brushed her cheek, wiping away a droplet of water, slow, deliberate, reverent, as if touching her proved she was real. Natalia's breath shivered. Vincenzo, what if they find out I'm with you? What if this gets worse? His jaw flexed, his expression turning unreadable, cold, calculating, familiar in a way that once terrified her but now made her chest ache. Vescri came for you because he thought you were alone, he said. He gambled on my weakest moment, your absence. His gaze dropped to her trembling hands. He won't get another chance. Revenge won't stop this, she whispered. He's part of a whole organization. You misunderstand. His voice lowered, soft and lethal. I'm not seeking revenge. She met his eyes, and her breath stilled at what she saw there. I'm ending it. Her pulse stumbled. You can't wage a war for me. I already have. His words fell between them like the closing of a gate. Natalia's chest tightened. Vincenzo, I didn't come back to destroy your world. He leaned in until their foreheads nearly touched. You came back because someone tried to take you from mine. Her breath hitched. His eyes flicked to her mouth, brief, restrained, before lifting back to hers. I won't lose you again, he murmured. The SUV turned off the main road, gliding onto a long private drive lined with stone walls and iron gates. The estate rose ahead, massive, dark, fortified. Natalia tensed. Vincenzo felt it instantly. His hand slid down her arm, fingers finding hers. He didn't squeeze, he enveloped. You're safe, he said again. Her eyes burned. You can't promise that. I can, he replied. And I will. The gates opened, motion sensors responding to the car's approach. As they passed through, a shiver ran down her spine. The mansion's lights glowed warm against the night. Too warm. Too familiar. The home she abandoned. The home he never changed. The SUV stopped beneath the front portico. Roman stepped out first, scanning the perimeter with military precision. Vincenzo didn't move. He waited. For her. Natalia, he said softly, look at me. She did. His eyes, dark, scorching, held 1,000 unsaid things. You walked away once, he whispered. You don't walk anywhere alone again. Her heart twisted. Vincenzo. He lifted her hand and pressed a slow, deliberate kiss to the center of her palm. A vow. A claim. A reckoning. Then he opened the door and stepped out, turning to offer his hand. Rain misted the air, gentle but cold. Natalia stared at his hand for a long second. Her life on one side of the door, his on the other, and the space between them, a battlefield of memories and longing. She placed her hand in his. He pulled her out with a steadiness that felt like home. House staff stood inside the foyer, lined up, silent, eyes widening at the sight of her. Some gasped. Some pressed hands to their mouths. Mrs. Rossi cried openly. But no one spoke. No one dared. Because standing beside Vincenzo Cassano, Natalia Hart looked nothing like a maid. Nothing like the frightened woman in a gray uniform. She looked like someone returning to a throne she never meant to abandon. Vincenzo stepped closer, his voice low enough for only her to hear. This house has been waiting for you, he murmured. I have been waiting for you. Natalia's lips trembled. And if I don't belong here anymore? He cupped her jaw gently, tilting her face toward his. Then we build a place where you do. Her breath hitched. And if I fall apart, she whispered. His expression softened, anger melting into something far more dangerous, far more intimate. Then fall, he said. I'll catch you. A tear slipped down her cheek. He brushed it away with his thumb. No more maids' uniforms, he murmured. No more starving. No more running. Not from me. The front doors closed behind them with a deep, echoing thud. A sound of finality, of return, of war. Natalia stood in the heart of the empire she once fled. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was drowning. She felt fate tightening its grip around her spine. Vincenzo stood beside her, a storm in a tailored suit. "Welcome home," he whispered.